Scott Spielman, and just want to open discussion with you guys. Wanted to talk about civic responsibility. You know, as soon as you turn 18, you have a right to vote, and that means a lot in our community. A lot of things that you can help change policy with, whether it's even for former foster youth. Say if there's a law out there about something you didn't like when you were growing up, or there's a new law out there about anything. Could be a school district, could be anything right down to the street you live on. There's usually a government agency or someone that is voted in place that helps provide those services. So it's very important when we kind of understand that we have a right to vote. A lot of people don't think that their vote matters, but it really does. So Scott Spielman, and then you got some question and answer after that, so take it away.
So voting is a lot like signing up for selective service. You gotta do that when you turn 18, you gotta sign up just in case they ever do the draft. You also have to do jury duty. And so I see it, you know, when I do trials, you see it with people that want to get out of jury duty. And for all kinds of reasons, they just don't want to be there, or if they're working, you know, they don't want to take time off of work, and just, you don't want to be the hassle with it. And so I've heard lots of times where a judge will explain to them, look, you know, our system's set up for juries. You know, we have a criminal justice system that is, you have a right to a trial of your peers, the people in the community, not of a judge, not of just a prosecutor. And so when people try to get out of jury duty, I mean, these are business owners, these are all kinds of people, and they're trying to get a business over. Sometimes it really ticks off a judge, and they'll get on them and say, listen, this is your contribution. There are people that gave their lives to set up our form of government that we chose. You know, that's what it comes down to. We have freedoms, but those freedoms have costs. And so some people have given their lives for the freedoms, and our system that we fought so hard to get, you know, it ain't perfect, but it's the best one we got. And so when they're explaining on a jury trial that I'd be doing, that you know, jury service is part of your obligation. Voting is the same thing, because everybody complains, right? That's it, man. Today, everybody complains, and I complain. But you can't complain about, especially government, you can't complain about it if you're not trying to do something about it. You know, no matter what your opinion is, you know, if you're not voting, then that just shows that you just don't care. And if you don't care, then you've got no right to complain. You know, and I don't care what somebody's opinion is. Everybody has different opinions. You know, you could be right along with somebody. You could be a conservative person, and there's that one particular issue that you don't agree with everybody else that considers themselves to be conservative. You could be a liberal, and there could be something that you don't agree with everybody that's liberal on. And that's what it comes down to, is that it's always our individual decisions. Voting's the biggest part of that. You know, in our county, so there's an election coming up. It's not a presidential election. They call it an off-year election. It's not a presidential election. And so they call it an off-year election. They're going to be lucky to get, they're about for 80,000. They're going to be lucky to get probably about maybe 20% of the people that can vote. And that's crazy. But that's what it will be.
In the state?
Probably in the state, but in the county at least. It'll probably be somewhere. We're a little bit better than other counties, I think, but overall, maybe 20 to 30% vote. And everybody else, they're just like, I don't want to be bothered, my vote doesn't matter, I don't care, I hate the whole system, I'm just lazy. You know, all kinds of different reasons why people won't do it. But I mean, I've always voted. It's not that hard. The cool thing is that everybody has a right to vote. You know, absent if you got a felony conviction, you can't vote. But if you're not a citizen, you can't vote. But if you're a citizen, you have a right to vote. But it takes very little. You just have to register to vote, and then you can vote. You can show up and vote at polling stations. You got an address for them to send it to. You can most people vote now. They call it absentee mail-in. So they'll mail the ballot to you. You get to take a look, and there's ballot statements. Like I had to fill out a ballot statement to run. And it kind of gets within 200 words. It allows me to say my whole piece about why I should be elected. And so you have that on the ballot. So they mail the ballots out, take a look at it, and then you fill in the bubble for all the different things. It'll be the governor, It'll be a lot of the state offices. It will be the local national leaders. You got this McCarthy, the Office McCarthy holds in Congress. So you have all these things that get voted for. And all you got to do is fill it out and mail it in. And so that, but people just don't want to be that inconvenienced, which is really nothing.
Or do you want me to ask questions
No,
after?
right now.
Do you have to fill out the whole thing? I know it's
No,
kind of a
here's
silly
what I
question.
found this out. I didn't know this. So what I learned is that a lot of times people are going to take a look at it. They're going to recognize like governor. Everybody knows what the governor's about, and so they'll vote for somebody for governor, and they'll go down the line until they get to a point where they say, "Well, I don't even know what this is, so I'm not going to do it anymore." And I didn't realize this, but there's a good percentage of people that just don't do it. So there'll be a lot of people that don't even vote on my election because it's so far down the ballot. And that's how lazy people can get. I mean, they're taking the time to fill some of it out, but it's like, well, I'm kind of done.
I would just not know, like, some stuff you don't know what it's about.
Yep.
What, why would you want to fill in one bubble? Like, what if that's not the right person?
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's part of it too. I'm just kidding on this stuff.
Yeah.
That is part of the reason I'm saying it. Like the propositions, you know about propositions, right?
Yeah.
And so when they make the ballot, I'm confused. I'm a lawyer, and I'm confused when I read these things. And what really stinks is that they don't really label them, I think, truthfully. And so you'll have a title that may be like a few lines long, but what that title is not really a good description of what that proposition is. And that can be very, very frustrating because I've been frustrated because on my end of it, for criminal law, they have had some different propositions that were literally labeled on them something safety, like safe neighborhoods, school safety, things like that. But what the law was doing was releasing prison inmates earlier. Well, okay, I'm sorry, but that bone ain't connected to that bone. So I don't get that. But that's the way they had it labeled. And so some people that voted that didn't read the whole thing, they didn't educate
And they think,
themselves.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, they thought they voted one way and they actually voted another way. And so it's important to educate yourself on it. Now, that's not that hard to do, especially for you all, because you're so much younger than I am and you know how to work computers, that you can research things and figure it out. There's a lot of information at our fingertips now, so we can't figure it out. It's just a matter of whether or not we're committed to doing it. And I won't lie to you. Sometimes I talk to my wife and it's like, did you read this thing? Because I trust my wife's opinion. And so there's sometimes I'll ask her, I said, did you read it? Did you figure it out? Okay, well, what are you doing with it? And that's how a lot of people do it. And so and if you trust the person that's doing it, then you're okay. It'd be nice if they made it just a little bit plainer and a little bit more truthful and accurate so that people didn't have to do so much digging to try to figure out what it really means. Yeah. And that's because that could be very frustrating. That could be very frustrating. So that's the reason for it, because you got a civic obligation to do it. And it is important because if you really want to know what's going on, you have to educate yourself. If you really want to make a difference, then you have to participate. If you really want to change the way things are, then you have to vote. And so that's really the importance of it. And I put it up there with, I was in the Army. I didn't get drafted, I enlisted. But that's why, because that was important to me. My father was, my grandfather was, and so to me that was something that was important, and it follows along that line.
This has nothing to do with topic, but how long were you in for?
I was in for about 3 years, 84. I went into the Army July 4th, 1984. That date I can remember.
Wow.
I have problems remembering sometimes my kids' birthdays.
Now, is the Army
That one I
the
remember
hardest?
is so easy.
that you think, or what branch do you think would be the hardest?
Well, of course, everything that I did was so hard because it was me. But I would say the Marines were tough. I wish that I had done, so I did the Army because I wanted to be a military police officer. Because I wanted to be a cop coming out of high school, okay? You can't, you're too young. So I started going to a junior college. Well, I was not ready to go to college yet. And so I'd made it through about a year. And then after that, when I realized they don't take roll anymore, or they don't take roll, then I wasn't there anymore. And when my old man figured out that I wasn't, then he said, well, pay rent or get out. And so I I want to be a police officer, so I joined the Army to become an MP. And so I was able to be a police officer in the Army. I had at 19 or 20, I got a gun, I got a badge, I got handcuffs. So I'm out there doing police work. And so I did that for 3 years. And the one thing I wish I had done was try to do something to challenge myself a little bit more, like do airborne. Would have been a good thing to have done, because I got kind of bored. You have to think of it this way. They can only make it as hard as the weakest person. Well, if you're in pretty good shape and you've got enough going on up here, it's not going to be that hard, really.
It's gonna be a cakewalk.
And not a cakewalk, because you're getting yelled at every day.
Well,
And there's a point that I reached. I was just talking to somebody the other day that Scott, they asked me, did you have a point that you can point to, that something that happened that you can point to that kind of set it for you, that really made it click when you try college and you're not making it there, so you go into the military, and after that you got squared away, you went back to college. I went back to college and I did really well. I got almost all A's after that, okay? Because the Army did it for me, did the trick, and made me more disciplined. It said, can you point to a time that it really clicked, that you went from being kind of like you guys fit this. Of course, there's probably somebody thinking millennials, whatever you guys are. I don't know what you guys are, but it was a teacher that was talking to me, and he said that the difference now with people that really they need this point with kids, because he teaches kids. He says it's hard for them because it's the how and whys. You have certain aged people that if you told them to do it, they just did it. All right. Then over time, you had somebody that when you told them to do it, they'd say, "Well, why?"
they gave you a bunch of lip service.
And then the newest ones, they ask why and how. And some of it's the video game stuff. He explained this to me. It makes sense. Tell me if you get this. When I grew up, we didn't have video games for nothing. We barely even had TV. All right. And so, and what TV there was, it stunk. Yeah, it's cool, but it stunk. He's putting some video thing away. So I had to go outside, figure out, you had to talk to people. You're going to go play, all right? So you get the neighborhood kids, and you got to, it's baseball. You got to get everybody together. You got to pick teams. You got to set up bases, whatever you're using, shirts or whatever, jackets and all that kinds of stuff. You got to make the boundaries. You got to the rules. You got to be resourceful. You got to figure out how to get things done. So you don't have to ask as often how to do things, because you're figuring out how to do it and you're interacting with people and solving it, right? And that made sense to me. Where now it's you can go forever and not talk to anybody and be in your own little world. And then there's the why is they want to feel empowered or whatever it is. I don't know.
Why do I have to go outside, or why do I have to do this?
Why? How? So he said, was there a point? He asked me, was there a point in your life that it clicked? And for me, it was the Army. When I go in, I'm getting processed in. They're yelling at me all the time, and I realized nobody here can stand. Nobody here cares about me. I'm getting yelled at.
Gotta do it, man.
I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody there telling me you're a good person. You are going to get this done. You're going to be popular. And then I realized it's like, that just means I got to take care of myself, and I got to just suck it up and get it done. And that's what I think clicked for me. And then I wished I had asked for more, like the jump school, something else, air assault, something else to have challenged me a little bit more. And so and then Marines are tough. They
My
put you
grandpa's a
through it.
retired Marine.
Yeah, no, they put you through it.
He was stationed in Okinawa for a year.
Yeah. So the military was good for me. We weren't at war. They blew up a couple things around me. They had terrorism in Europe, though. They were stupid. Okay, so talked about voting.
Before you, it might be just kind of a too hard of a question. Why can't people who have a felony conviction vote?
It's just the
Just think
rule. It's
about
one of those
that
things that when somebody
Just
suffers, when somebody suffers a felony conviction, there are certain things that happen to them. So It's like felons can't possess firearms, even
Right.
though everybody under the Second Amendment has a right to possess firearms. There's some limits on it, but they
Yeah.
have a right to. It's the same thing for voting.
That's fair.
People, yeah, and so there's
I get
ways
the
though.
firearms, but
Yeah, but there also
I
are
guess I
some
get it.
ways to
Go around it.
to get, well, not to go around it. Don't say go around, not to go around, but to you can ask to get kind of like a almost like a pardon type of thing to be relieved from that.
You can get it expunged. After
You
so
can do
many
expungements. There's some other things you can do too. Expungements under 1203.4. You can do expungements on if it's a wobbler. Okay, I call it wobbler. It's if it can be reduced to a misdemeanor, it can then be dismissed, and so therefore then you can.
yeah, I'll
you
land
can
certain
get
ones, right?
rehabilitated.
Like,
But yeah, it's called expungement when you do that. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions about anything? I'm good for anything. What do you got? That's it.
I think I just don't like. I haven't worried yet because a lot of people come up to me. Like I go to BC and they'll come up to me. And they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Hi, have you registered to vote?" And I'm just thinking, no, they're trying to get me into something that I don't want to do because they're wanting me to vote for some reason though.
Oh, yeah,
Like they
yeah,
want me to
Oh,
look
yeah.
at something, and I just get kind of irritated.
All you got to do is say, "Well, yeah, sure, I am interested in registering to vote. Do you have a registration packet there? Yeah, here you go." It's like, "Okay, thank you very much. Walk away."
Okay.
Say, wait. I'm not gonna get my
No,
whatever.
no.
Yeah, because it actually there are people that get paid for everybody they get to register. to
Yeah,
vote.
and I'm like, I want to help them out, but at the same time, I don't want to put my name on something.
But it's
I just have to do more research.
they can't tell you, I mean, they can't make you vote a certain way. So what they're going to do is they're going to tell you about, hey, but you really should vote for this person or this whatever proposition or whatever it might be, initiative. So that's what they'll tell you. They really want you to do that, but you don't have to do that. They're giving you a packet that is available to anyone, and you can go on. I'm sure you can go online and get this stuff. And so it's just because they offer it doesn't mean that you have to do what they want you to do.
But they do carry just the packets.
Absolutely, that's the only thing that they can give you.
Yeah, and then like a petition or something probably.
Yeah, they can tell, but you don't have to sign it.
Yeah.
You don't have to sign it. So that's a good opportunity to, hey, thanks a lot. I've been looking for one of these. Take care. No, wait. And then some people, that is their job. They will go out. It's kind of a contract thing. You go out and you get paid for each person that you register to vote, because they're also having you give them the whole spiel about, oh, and by the way, vote for this person. They're really good, and that's what we're hoping to get more votes.
Well, I'm sure they're able to lie though, right? They're able to like fluff the truth about.
No, nobody lied.
Sarcasm.
We're talking.
Yeah,
Said
that's
the
all I'm like-
lawyer.
We're
said the
talking
lawyer.
politics
Yeah.
here. Nobody lies. No, never. No, that's why you just have to be smart enough.
Just do your own research.
Yeah, it's like you're cautious for a good reason. If you're not going to just trust somebody at face value. You're going to want to know, okay, what's your angle here?
You don't want to know details and what they're really after.
Yeah, it's like my kids. Every time they want something,
I love you.
all of a
What do you
sudden,
want?
yeah, there you go. All right, kid, what's your angle here? Yeah.
My grandpa used to do that to me all the time. What do you really want?
Yeah. What do you want? Okay, here's what I want. But yeah, no. So that's why you got to educate yourself. You got to get registered. You can even register the day of the election. You go down to a polling place, and you have to attest that you live at a certain location, because if you're going to vote in Kern County for Kern County, you have to live in Kern County, and you do not want to lie about that, because that's a crime. And
What's that
that's
called? If you
Voter
lie and you're
fraud.
not from.
Voter fraud. Voter fraud.
That's,
Like some politicians will lie and they'll say that they live in this location so that therefore they can run, like say city council. I live in this ward, and they really don't.
Mm.
And so that's
You
that's
think
a,
they would know better.
that's a violation of the law. So, any questions about so what are you guys up to? Who's going to school? Where are you going?
BC.
Where are you going?
I was.
Where are you going? BC?
BC.
You going back?
No.
No. You working?
Yes, kind of.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Where are you going to school? BC. Okay.
I'm going back this fall.
Good. Hey, I'll tell you what. That's one good thing about California is it costs money. It ain't free, But, you know, it is a pretty good value, so it's a thing. But also it's like, hey, you know, it's like my dad said, hey, he got no problem with me not going to school. It was, but if you're not going to school and you're working, then you're gonna pay rent. Now you're making these decisions, then you know, that's fine, but here's what you're gonna have to do. And where you going?
High Desert. It's a medical college.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Anybody else going to school? You guys down there working?
I'm working.
There you go. There you go.
I don't want to make too much money right now because I feel
Yeah, no,
like
that's
I'll
a bad
leave.
thing. Yeah,
No,
money's bad.
really, because I think I'll be like, oh, well, I'm making all right money. Like I don't need college, you know.
No,
That's what I feel like a lot
you
of
want to
people
stay
do.
motivated. You
They'll
wanna
make
stay
like
motivated.
$15 an hour, and they're like, oh yeah, you know.
And that's the thing, though, is if you get into that kind of a job that you can do that advancement, then you know sometimes college isn't necessarily for everyone. It isn't something that you need. I mean, if you can do it, yeah, absolutely sure, go for it. Yeah. But you know, make
It
sure
is
that you
hard
go
though.
into it. Oh, I know.
For me, it's hard.
Yeah.
I go off the scale, it's not easy, it's not hard, it's in between, which is I say challenging, because, you know, challenging, you can make it through.
Really, the homework is like the worst part. You gotta have like discipline and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially reading and English stuff like that. You gotta be on it.
But and that's why. So I'll tell you. So when I get out of the Army, I go to college because I had money for it because of the Army. All right, that was a good thing about it. It gave me this money.
How does that work? Like after you are back?
It's like a certain.
There's
they,
different-
they
yeah,
pay
there's-
for like whatever. Or?
There's different ways. I mean, it changes through years. You got to remember, I'm a little bit older than you guys. And back when I did it, I paid in like, from what I remember, I paid in like $2,700 while I was in the Army. Okay, so when I put in $2,700, they actually gave me back $20,000 for the going to school. So all right, it was kind of an investment for me. You know, I'm paying 27, and I'm in the Army as enlisted. You know, I was a private. I got up to sergeant, but I'm not making that much money. So it's a little chunk of change. So okay, I made that investment. I'm going to go ahead and I'll make use of it then. And so I said, okay, I'll go back to college. And so I went back, and I was able to use that about $20,000 to pay for tuition, to pay for everything, anything I wanted to. I'd get a certain amount every year. And so I did that. That's how I paid for it. Sometimes when people, I wasn't in combat, but people in combat, they actually get that money for free. It's called a GI Bill. It's just one of those things that, hey, if you put your life on the line, we're going to give you college money. You just have to do it though. And so that's how I end up going back to college, because I got the money. I figured, well, I'll go for it. And I got almost all A's after that. The difference was for me was I don't think I was really much smarter. I was a little bit older, so maybe I was a little smarter. I wasn't always the smartest one in the class. I did all right in high school. I didn't try that hard. But in college, when the professor said, this is what it takes to get an A, it's just like an order. And so I did it. And when the professor said, you can do this extra credit, I just did it. And so then all of a sudden I'm getting all A's. And so that was the benefit for me that it did. It made me mature, made me more responsible, and that's why my grades from that point on did really well. I still plan on being a cop. I go to Fresno State, I get a criminology degree. My cousin, who's a cop up in Fresno, he's driving around doing traffic, and so I go out and ride with him because I want to be a cop. I get to see what he does. It's cool. And so we go out, and when I'm riding with him, he asked me how my grades are. And I said they're pretty good. And he said, you should go to law school. And I asked him why. And he said, well, when you're 50, do you want to be working graveyard shift? That's what I thought about it. No, not really. He said, then go to law school, become a lawyer. So I took the test to get into law school. It's called the LSAT. And I did well enough. I got into a law school in Sacramento. And so I went to the law school. And the difference was, so when you go to college, it's more work than high school. It's college. When you go to law school from college, it's you have a lot of people that did well in college, and now they're in law school competing. Law school was when we did the orientation. It's mine. It's buzzing like mad. When they did the orientation, there's about I think 600 of us in this huge auditorium, and the guy giving the orientation says, okay, look to your left and look to your right. Of the three of you, 2 of you will not be here at the end of this. And he was right. Because they got rid of 2/3 of our class. The reason that they do that is,
Only
Because-
200 made it through.
Yeah. and so the reason that they do that is they are judged by their bar passage rate. So after I graduate from law school and I take the bar exam, if I pass, then that percentage of our students that passed is a reflection on the law school.
Oh.
And that ranks them. So if you want to be a high-ranking law school, you have a high bar passage rate. So your students that graduate and take the bar, if it's a high percentage that pass, then your law school is ranked high, and then people are willing to pay a lot of money to go there. That's the way it works. And so that's why they got rid of 2/3, because they knew they would have a higher bar passage rate, because these 1/3 that are left, they can do it.
Yeah, so you go through like kind of trials and stuff before you do the bar.
And so I worked my butt off doing that. That's how I got through that. I wasn't the smartest one in the room, but man, I worked hard. And when I studied for the bar, man, I worked hard. It was an entire summer of just studying about 12 to 13 hours a day. And that's what got me through. And when I took the bar, I passed it the first time. But it was exhausting. It was a 3-day examination. And I was convinced after the first day that I failed it. I got done with it and I'm like, I failed it. I'm out of here.
Wow, you passed. That's
And I went back and I just kept, but that's good. For me, it was good. That's that military thing that when I thought that I failed it, I'm like, okay, you got to just suck it up and get it done and just power through. And so that's how the military, that affected me. And that one day in the military, when I went in and I'm processing in, and I'm looking around realizing that nobody gives a rat's roo-roo about me in this whole place. Nobody cares what happens to me. I don't have my parents, I don't have my friends, I don't have my family, I don't have my teachers, I don't care. Nobody here cares what goes on with me. I've got to suck it up and get through this on my own. And that did it for me. That's when that teacher I talked to about it, when he asked me, what was it that did it for you? And I realized that was it, where all of a sudden it said, you know what, I got to figure out how to get these things done myself. You're still part of a group, but you have to really kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get it done. That's what happened to me.
So you can be in the Army without, ever seeing war
Oh yeah,
and still get like the benefits and stuff, how they pay for your college and all that.
yeah. So the time that you enlist, so I enlisted for 3 years. For those 3 years, they could make me do anything. So the only guarantee I got was they were going to train me as a military police officer. The only guarantee that I got. Now, when they train you for it, they're probably going to use you for it. They've got a lot of MPs in the Army, so they're going to need a lot of them. So I felt comfortable that I was going to do that job that I wanted to. But for those 3 years, hey, you're signed up. And
So you could have seen more.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
If they said, hey, we need more people in the infantry, okay, you may have trained as an MP, but you also trained as a soldier when you did boot camp, so you're in the infantry now. And so it's for that time period when people sign up, that's what you put yourself on the line for.
Yeah. That's scary.
But I learned this too. I just talked to somebody else about they want to go to the military. I'm telling this guy, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. The mother's standing there, and she's looking at me. She's got daggers, because I'm talking to her baby about going to the military. And Mom was not thrilled about it. And then I kind of realized, I can see why.
Yeah, my stepson's only 8, and he's like, I'm gonna go in the Army. I'm like, oh heck, no, you're not going nowhere. You're going to college. But then I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, if he doesn't have to go to war, but now he just burst in my bubble.
My nephew, he went.
When I was a kid, I wanted to go to the Marines. My grandpa told me, you won't last 2 seconds with the attitude that you got. They'll curb stomp you in the ground.
It's interesting because the military's been around for literally hundreds of years.
And they'll get up straight in your face and pull you as far as they can, and
It's
you can't
a-
do anything about it.
They are trying to break you down so that you will always be a part of something that when you are given an order, you will do it. Because everybody else, the whole system relies upon that. You cannot have, you need to have people that are innovative, they're gonna adapt and overcome, but you cannot have people that are individuals. Because if you have somebody that's an individual, they're not with the program, everybody else is over here. It's like my kids. When my kids forget stuff, I always tell them, you realize if this was war, you'd be dead. You forgot your gun. You know, like I had a kid that forgot his shoe. My wife takes him all the way to school, and he forgot his shoe. I don't know how
I'd be
you do
mad.
that.
I'd be like, come on.
And so my wife was so mad, she's going to work too, and she tells me, she gets on the phone, she's mad, and she says, you go pick him up because I do not want to see him. And so when I get there, he's like in 3rd grade. When I get there, I just walk in
That's
and I look down at his one foot with no shoe on it, and I look at him and he starts crying. And so that kind of thing is like I said, son, you realize if we were at war, you'd be dead because you forgot your gun. And so I keep telling him stuff like that. So that's why you can't be too much of an individual. You can be an independent thinker, but you better be with the program, because otherwise somebody else is going to pay for you not carrying your weight. What's our deal? I'm good. You guys are still good. I think my thing's like 6, right? Did my wife tell you that I had to be out here?
No.
Hold on, let me check. My wife tells me where to go and when. And if I'm not there, I'm in big trouble.
So how long does an elected official typically stay in office?
So it depends. There's some that, 6, I'm good. There's some that, mine would be 4 years, 4-year term. And at the end of the 4 years, you have to run again. Because that's the thing, for elected official, it's a constitutional position. California Constitution enables there to be elected district attorneys for every county. And so that's why I'm a constitutional officer here, an elected official. And so for DAs, it's 4 years. Like there's a guy, Vince Fong is in our state assembly. His is every 2 years, which to me would be awful. You get elected, you go to work, and then you're getting ready for your next election. I mean, that's ridiculous. But there's some judges and state senators are 6 years, 6-year terms. And I don't have, I would never do it. I'm already old. I can't go that much longer. But they don't have term limits for my position. But like where you have the president, because everybody knows how long can you be president?
4 years.
Negative.
8
Well,
years.
4-year term.
8 years.
Yep. So like Obama, he was 8 years. And then he can't do it anymore.
That kind of sucks. Like, cause they should.
Well,
make
you know why?
everybody-
Okay, you know why they brought that on? Okay, you remember back, who was the president back during World War II?
Because FDR was president so long that when an election actually came up and he was gonna run again, nobody knew what to do.
Yep, he was gonna get it again. So that's when it was FDR. He was in it for, I don't even know, I think it was 16 years. I don't know, long time. He died in office. And so that's where they said, okay, people that want term limits, I can understand it because you want new thinking. Here's the thing. So our world's pretty screwed up, right?
Basically.
Okay, all right, cool. So we're unanimous on that. So I have hope because you guys have to figure out how to fix it. And that's why I don't look at you, I'll kid you about being a minute. You're not even millennials, what are you guys?
Yeah, they are.
Are you guys are millennials?
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, you're millennials, okay. Congratulations, millennials. You guys, I have hope you are going to solve the problems that my generation is not solving.
Are you
Because
sure?
I am hopeful, I'm eternally hopeful, because there's a lot of things that aren't getting fixed. And so that's my hope, is that you guys will figure out how to get it done. Because that's how I think, that's different, and I kid about millennials and stuff like that. But it's also, I think that you guys don't necessarily buy the BS. And so I think you'll find new solutions to problems that haven't existed before. So,
It takes engagement, right? I mean, can't.
if you
We get
don't
out of
care
our
enough,
phones and
yeah.
stuff.
If you put the phone away and you care enough to vote to make a difference in it, you know, like I said, hey, you know, you can have your own opinions. You should have your own opinions. Form them, be educated on them. you know, if you're gonna just go along with it because, you know, somebody you like does it that way, then I think that's foolish.
It's almost like the opposite now. We don't want to go on with it.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, geesh.
So no, you need to educate yourself on it and be a part of the solution. Because right now, it takes me off that they're not solving things. You know, like the national debt, you know about national debt, right?
Yes.
That thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and nobody addresses it. And at some point, somebody's gonna have to pay for it. And that really ticks me off because, I mean, I got kids, you guys are kids, I've got kids. And here we are saddling you guys with this tremendous debt that only gets bigger with absolutely no solution for it. On either side, I don't care who it is. You know, when the Democrats were in charge, it kept on building. Republicans, now they're in charge, it keeps building. So neither side wants to solve it, they just wanna talk about why the other side's worse.
Wasn't California the gold mine, but now we're like so high in debt that it's hard to.
You know what, we really don't accumulate debt necessarily. We get bonds and things like that kinda does, but not at the level of the national. The federal government just builds it up, just unbelievably. The problem is that, you know, California, the economy has slowed down, and so, you know, if you're gonna have all the different services that you have, you gotta be able to pay for them. And if you don't, if you're driving away business, and that's why you know, people that are in charge in Sacramento, it's one party, it's the Democrats. The Democrats are in charge of California, there's no doubt about that. They have, not only have the majority, they have a super majority, so it's theirs to control. And when you have one party, whoever it is, if you have one party and they don't have a challenge from anybody else, it's like not having competition and being a business. You know, you're gonna charge people unfair rates because you got nobody else to compete with you. So why do you do it? Because you can. So why do you enact laws that don't really do enough? Because you can. Nobody's challenging you to try to figure out a different way of doing it. And I'm not saying I got the best way. I'm saying that why aren't we trying to find, instead of trying to find the way that best fits my group's desire, why don't we find the best way to actually solve the problem? And that's why I'm hopeful that you guys will do that. Cut through the BS and get to it. But if you don't even care enough to vote, then forget it. Who cares? That's what's frustrating. That's what frustrates me with people that won't vote, that don't care enough. So that's why I would hope that people, as you're listening to me, you're giving me the respect and listening to me, all right? You know, respect the, you know, trying to get something done and at least vote. It isn't that hard. Once you get signed up, then they keep on sending it to you. You don't even have to keep registering. You're already registered, they keep sending it to you.
Forever?
Yeah.
So you don't have to re-register or anything?
You do when you move.
Oh, okay.
Yep. You have to re-register when you move. Because you can only vote in your area, so that's why you have to. Even if you're still in California, you have to re-register where you live.
Have you always been on the community side, like the district attorney? And have you already have you always been on the prosecutor side?
Yeah. So when I get out of law school, I'm swinging a hammer, working construction down south. I get the job here. This is the only legal job I've had, and I'll tell you, best legal job. And here's why. So as a prosecutor, I am looking for the truth. I'm looking for justice. I don't have a client. I represent the people of the state of California. Everybody. That includes the victim, that includes the defendant, the person that's accused. So I'm looking for the truth. If I find something that helps the other side, okay, so let's say you're accused of a crime, you're on trial.
Yeah.
If I have some kind of information that can help you, I have to give it to you.
Do you think there's some prosecutors that don't?
There could be,
Because they're
But-
so like,
but if they do, the least of what they're gonna happen is get fired. The most what's happened is they might get prosecuted. I have an obligation. It's an ethical, it's my conscience too. That's how the system's set up. It's not a fair fight in the sense of, well, I can hide my stuff. No, I have an obligation. If I have it, I have to give it to you, all right? A defense attorney, the main job of a defense attorney is to get the client off. Now, if I'm accused of a crime, I want the best defense attorney I can get. But their job is to protect their client and get their client off.
whether they did it or not.
Whether they did it or not. If they find evidence, so if I'm accused of a crime and you're my attorney, and you find some kind of evidence that helps him as the prosecutor to show that I'm guilty, you don't have to give that up. You don't have that same obligation. That's why I have the best legal job. And I don't have a client even though I represent everybody. So I'm not in civil law. It's almost always a fight about money, okay? It could be about, if it's custody, maybe you're fighting about getting somebody, or their custody. Other than that, it's money. If it's family law, they're fighting about money. If it's a contract, they're fighting about money. It's property, they're fighting about money. If it's personal injury, they're fighting about money. It almost always comes down to money. I'm trying to get my client the most money possible. All right, whether I'm defending them or I'm a plaintiff in a case. So that is my motivation, and I don't have that. That's why I have the best legal job that there is.
It kind of reminds me of the situation that you said, like, when I've been in this system ever since I was 10 years old, and I've wanted to be a social worker. That was my dream job. I would never be concerned about the money so far. I'd always be concerned about the kid who's in that situation due to maybe parents, he put himself there, or whatever. I believe, and this is my opinion, call me out on it, I believe 95% of social workers are more possessed by the check versus getting it done to help the kid.
And are you basing that on your experience?
I am.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just asking. And that's sad to me. I will tell you that I have empathy for social workers that are truly motivated. They're getting the job done because it can be truly thankless.
Like, I'm not saying there's bad or good,
Well, there's good and bad everywhere.
Yeah.
There's good and bad everywhere. And what you hope for is that you have somebody that's motivated by more than just money.
Right.
And sometimes you'll have that where somebody, they started out at least like that. It's like, so I see it with defense attorneys, especially with these young public defenders when they come in fresh out of law school, where they think that there's just huge numbers of people that are wrongly accused. Yeah, occasionally there's gonna be somebody who's wrongly accused. It is very, 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 very rare. Usually as we are basically processing a case that everybody knows the person's guilty, and we're just trying to figure out where do you settle the case. When you get the new public defender, that we call them true believers. They're true believers. And then they get a client that lies to them. They're shocked by it. And then they get another one that lies to them, and they're shocked by it. So what ends up happening is that they get burned out, and they don't last very long. Now, if you get somebody that's in there that understands, and this is it has to do mostly with maturity. If you understand, I'm representing my clients, I'm gonna do the best job I possibly can. I'm gonna protect their rights, and I'm gonna try to get them the best disposition on the case. Then they're gonna be able to understand what their role is in it. And they're still gonna work hard for them, but they're not gonna be shocked when somebody lies to them. And then I have it with prosecutors too. When they have a victim that lies to them, and then they're shocked by it. And I have to explain to them, listen.
It makes it a harder case.
It does, well, it definitely makes it a harder case. Well, we're gonna lose it. If I have a witness that I put on that the jury thinks lied, forget it, I'm done. Because if people don't have faith in what I'm doing, I have to get all 12 of them to vote guilty. It has to be unanimous. Proved beyond any reasonable doubt. And so that's very difficult to do that. And if they think that my witness is lying, forget it, it's done. I'm not gonna get it. Because that jury's not gonna base their decision
So
on
one
a lie.
suspicion, forget it all, practically.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if one thinks the person's not guilty, it's a hung jury, right?
Yeah, all it takes is 1 out of 12. Yeah. Now, we win most of our cases. Why do you think we win most of our cases?
Because you stick through.
Because they're like real, because
Yes,
they're really guilty,
it's true,
and you have good witnesses,
yes.
evidence.
We don't file a case if we don't have a reasonable probability of proving it beyond a reasonable doubt. If I don't think that I can go into court and with a reasonable probability of proving this beyond a reasonable doubt, then I'm not gonna file the case. I'm gonna make that decision based on my experience and my knowledge of the law. My experience in working in a lot of cases. I've done 105 felony jury trials. I've done 21 murder trials. I've done 20 sexual assault offenses trials. I have done a lot of trials. So that when I look at police reports and try to figure out what happened here and what I think is gonna happen in court, I've got a pretty good idea based on that experience. And I know the law, I know what self-defense is. Was this it was a murder case, was it in self-defense? And can I prove it? Because if I go to trial, let's say you're accused of murder, and I charge you with it, and we go to trial, and you are acquitted, the jury says, we don't think you proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. They're not even saying that you're innocent, they're saying, I don't think you proved it beyond a reasonable doubt.
You can't do
You're
it.
found not guilty? Exactly. It's a double
I
check.
watch a lot of them. I
There
like
you go.
watching.
Well, it turned out to work out
So
for you.
practically, that's their assumption, they don't have truth to back it up, right?
They are presumed innocent. They're not presumed to be truthful. So when they testify, you look at them like every other witness, but they're presumed innocent. So, but I can't retry. I go to trial and I lose, and I never should have gone to trial on this evidence. Now I can't do anything. So all of a sudden we find great evidence. No, you already tried. You're done.
No, it sucks when everyone kills you.
And that's I got interviewed today and I got kind of upset about it. I didn't cry, but I got upset about it. And because I got interviewed and they asked me, because I'm running for DA, and they asked me, well, is there something that you wish you could turn back time and do differently? Something could have been different. And I had a case where it was about a 2-year-old kid that had these injuries, and I charged the uncle with inflicting the injuries that led to his death. And I truly, I to this day, I know that he's guilty of it. But when I was putting the evidence on, I had an expert from Valley Children's up in Madera that wasn't very good in testifying about the injuries. And they had an expert that was very good. And I lost that case. And from that point on, though, I would have turned back time because I would have gotten an expert that we now use. And when I supervised the unit that handled those cases, I always said, you need to get this person. I don't care what it costs. Because this person is an expert on it and they can get in there and testify about what this means. And so I always would pay that, whatever that cost was. And I learned that. And the reason that case really impacted me, it was a 2-year-old, and in the middle of the trial, we're trying to figure out, there's this it looks like paint on the kid's, Julian Sanchez's kid's name. On Julian's feet, there's this blue paint. And we could not figure out what this was. We're trying to figure out, did this have something to do with why he got beat? Where did this come from? What is it?
Do we really have a crime lab and stuff?
We do.
Like who does
We
that?
run it.
Like CSI and stuff?
Well, so we figured out what it was because the grandmother told me. She said, that's from us. When he died, we took his feet and we put on paint and then put it on paper so that we'd have something from him. And so that hit hard. I'll never forget that. And that's why I look back at that case. And I could have done that differently, got a better expert to be able to testify about what the injuries meant. Because the kid, it was whether or not the Julian fell or if the injuries were inflicted. And my expert just couldn't counter this other expert. And if I had a good one, I'm confident it would have been a conviction. So that's a regret that I'll always have.
Oh, that's that, you know.
So what began to like DA?
Because I want to be a cop, then I'm an MP, and then when I go to school, it made sense. If I want to be a cop, prosecutor is kind of the next logical step. Because you're just basically taking, when the police do the investigation, they accumulate the reports, they give them to us, we review to decide whether to file charges. So the prosecutor's the next one at the step in the legal system. And so that's why I could relate to it. I wanted to be a cop. That's what I could relate to. That's why I did it. That's why I did. And jobs were hard to come by for this work back when I started here. And if I couldn't have found a job, I probably still would have been doing construction. I just would have taken, my dad had a small construction company down south, and so that's where I was working. I just would have taken that and run over.
So when you first started, what was the pay rate?
It was, I want to say $36,000 a year. Yeah, that was back,
Yeah, I heard
not that long
I
ago.
heard defense attorneys get paid more
That depends,
than prosecutors.
if they're good, yeah. That was 94. 36. I think our starting prosecutors now make about 60.
It's actually not too long ago.
You're saying I'm not that old?
No, 'cause my dad was born in 97.
Alright.
No, you're not that old.
Your dad was born in 97?
No, crap. My sister was born in
I was thinking,
95.
what the heck? I'm like,
I'm having a moment here. I'm having a moment here.
Yeah, no, it's a good, the thing is that when you work for the government, I never thought I'd be in the position I'm in now. So we have 90 prosecutors in our office. And there's the elected DA, and then there's me, I'm the assistant DA. We've got a chief below me, then we have the rest of the 90, okay? You're not gonna get rich working for the government, but you're gonna be comfortable. I got good benefits, I got that, but I'm not gonna be rich, and that's just the way it should be anyways. But I'm very appreciative. It's been a good job for me, and I've enjoyed it. I started out when I was in law school. I did a 1-800 victims. Okay, it's before the internet. Internet does not exist yet. It's like 92. There's no internet, and so what happens though is that like a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence, when they need something, they would call 1-800 victims. I had this big book throughout the state that told me rape crisis centers, sexual assault centers, domestic violence centers, shelters, different law enforcement places that they would report the crimes to. And so victims would call in and I would talk to them. And so that's where you're asking how do I get to be a prosecutor, because I did that kind of stuff. And that's the dedication. I have enjoyed my job. I'm very lucky. I have a job that I enjoy, even though emotionally, you see, I'm not kidding on that 2-year-old kid. Julian Sanchez, I'll never forget. It is emotionally draining. But it's like when something bad happens and you go to the emergency room. You want a doctor that knows what they're doing. Something bad happened, I'm prosecuting the case. I do a good job of it. And so that's what motivates me to do it. And if you can find that working, and you have a thing that you love to do, whatever it is, then it makes it much easier going to work. And a lot of that is just based on your attitude. If you're gonna go to something and you say, this sucks, then it's gonna suck every single day you go and do it. And that's why some people in my office, even prosecutors, they don't like it. I don't understand it because, even if I'm a jerk, you got your cases, you get to go to court and help people, go do it. But if they don't enjoy it, I look at them, I'm like, then why are you doing it? And go do something else. Because it pays good. Well, go find something else that pays good, you'll complain less about it. Sick of listening to it. But I've been very fortunate. in that. Covered a lot.
What's your name again? I'm sorry. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Scott Spielman. So,
my fiance thinks he's in one now. I think that's cool.
what?
That you came in I'm gonna tell him. You're trying to be the district attorney? Oh, he's gonna be all in too, watch.
Yeah.
You like that
Believe
kind of
me,
stuff.
I ain't all that. No, and you guys, okay, so you guys have all been foster kids? Is that what it is? Okay. You realize, so you hear what I do. I did 8 years doing murder cases and sexual assault cases and a lot of molestation cases, a lot. And so, if there's anybody in the system as far as prosecutors, I have an understanding partly of what you guys have gone through by seeing kids like you. And I'm very grateful for having something like this, something for you guys that don't have what I had growing up. It breaks my heart. It just absolutely does. So I know it's tough because I see it for you guys. I didn't have to do it. I gave you an example of what was tough for me growing up. That ain't crap. So, you guys, you keep it up, be responsible for yourself first and foremost, and then for those around you. And know that people recognize that it's tough for you. But when there's things there to help, take advantage of it. Use it. Better yourself. And that's why I gave you that example of, that was what hit it for me, because that could have been just as easily one of you that finds yourself someplace where, nobody cares. but you gotta be able to really suck it up and get it done yourself. And rely on yourself first, and then there will be people that will help. But I believe me, I recognize how tough it is because I've dealt with kids. I've had to go to, on molestation cases, I've gone to prisons to talk to prior victims. And so I know how it affects them on those cases. And so it's a tough thing, but there's a lot of us that understand it. You take advantage of when things are offered to you that you can use to better yourself, whether it's working, it's school, it's housing, it's whatever, and know that, I'm praying for you. I'm somebody of faith, so I pray. And so I know it's tough, and I admire when you're able to get things done. I really